Hello, fellow Fumblers, and welcome back to another episode of the Film Fumblers podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Kids, released in 1995 and directed by Larry Clark. So without further ado, I'm Adrian.
I'm Jay.
I'm Taryn.
And I'm James.
Alright, guys, we're going to fucking need this one for this movie. So let's, who's ever shooting? Is it just me and Jay?
I got one.
I'm shooting.
Oh, okay.
I still haven't got
Okay.
it. My bad.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Oh god, I almost spilled it all over myself.
Ooh. Tequila. Alright.
You were shooting tequila?
Yeah. What are you guys
Okay.
shooting?
I had a Kirtland brand vodka.
It's
Yeah.
Kirkland, too.
Still rocking
Huh?
that nasty vodka.
Nasty vodka.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, this movie, definitely the most controversial movie that we have done an episode on. I just watched this movie for the first time today, and actually James was saying, like, we really need to start watching movies a lot earlier, because even just watching this movie like 6 hours ago, whatever it was, I feel differently about it now than I did 6 hours ago, and it's just, I don't even know how to feel.
Yeah.
Opening thoughts, where are you guys at?
Well, I want to say this is the first movie we've done that has come recommended by a listener.
Mm.
True.
So that is why, this movie has not exactly been like the others that we've done. That being said, I don't know, how can I start this? The look was very 90s. I was getting a lot of that from it.
Oh
The
yeah.
way that it
Yeah.
was shot, like the way that the shots were kind of composed. There was a lot of like passing, they would like pan and then they would pass in front of like a tree or something. There's a lot of
Long
like
ass
really,
van.
yeah, like really obscure like hidings of what we were saying, which is interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I just want to say too, this being our first movie that was recommended by a viewer, I still am firmly not going easy on how I feel about this movie and any movie. I think it would be like a disservice to our fans to just, oh, you recommended this movie, so we loved it. So
Yeah.
I have pretty strong feelings about this movie, and I just want to disclose that right from the gate. How are you feeling about it, James?
Yeah, man, I watched it, and I think that's why I was talking to you guys. Like, we need to give some time to decompress and like really pull some stuff out of this. I think it'll help us as reviewers, whatever you want to call us, like help us kind of dig through something like this where at face level you might not see that there's a lot to talk about it. I don't know, maybe that's me, because like you said,
Yeah.
well, you had a totally different perspective and you just watched the movie 6 hours ago, so
Yeah.
I don't know, it's definitely gonna help us.
Yeah. It's not like it wasn't like almost I don't want to say like traumatic movie, but like it was a heavy movie, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So like having the time to let that sink in and kind of do its thing, I think is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
in the same boat as Jay and Adrian. I watched it today as well.
Mhm.
And like watching the movie, like during the viewing of it, I felt so badly about it. And like the further I get from it, the more I think about it, it just keeps changing. It's fucking pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and in fairness, I've never heard about this movie before until it freaking won, like, for the movie that we're gonna do this week.
Yeah.
I was
yeah.
just like, oh, okay, like,
Yeah.
I didn't really read much up on it.
It's sort of cultish following. I know a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
skater scenes and stuff like that. People who are really into New York culture and stuff like that. They
Right.
for some reason gravitate toward this movie, which is kind of a strange
Yeah,
movie
I
to
saw-
gravitate towards. But
Supreme made some skateboard decks with like screenshots of this movie on it. I was like,
Of
that's
course,
yeah,
so weird.
yeah, Mac Miller's CD is an
Dude,
ode to
yeah.
the poster of Kids.
I was
Is
gonna
the
Has
album named
samples
Kids?
from it too.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that a little bit. So in high school, our friend Joey Jones, he was like, hey, check out this mixtape by this guy Mac Miller, and I was like, okay, like I had no idea what the fuck that was, right? And it was Kids, and I was like, okay, yeah, and there's some bangers on Kids, like there's some good songs on that. It's an acronym in this case. It stands for Kicking Incredibly Dope Shit, but the mixtape is pretty good, and I was like, yeah, okay, I can dig this. So I just kind of listened to that over, however long, and then Mac Miller blew up, and I was like, wait, this is the same dude as this mixtape. So I only today learned that I had heard a lot of the quotes and stuff in the movie, but it was because of that mixtape. Like he uses a lot of the samples in it.
Yeah, I missed the chance to actually listen to it. I need to do that just to, I don't know, kind of check it out. I'm pretty sure I've heard some of those songs just kind of hanging out with you guys and everything.
Yeah. That's what's interesting is like this. I mean, even just listening to you guys talk about that, this movie had way more of an implication on pop culture than I really thought it did. Like, it's like, what? I thought this was like a nothing, but it's, those cultish following movies that, for whatever reason, who knows? Maybe I'll wake up next week and be like, you know what? That movie had a lot to say. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit to talk to our audience and about people who have not seen this movie. I don't know if necessarily you need to. I think to kind of just broadly describe this movie, it's about a couple of horny 16-year-old boys who live in, is it Manhattan, New York City?
Yeah.
And they're just pretty much on a quest to have as much sex as they can, do a lot of drugs, drink a lot, and skate on occasion. And that's kind of the gist of the whole movie. I mean, it's not, on face value, it's really not deep, on like the face value of what this, there's not really a lot of big story development. It's just, it all takes place in one day, kind of like Catcher in the Rye type thing, where I think that book takes place over 1 week or one weekend or something. It's very, very quick, and it's, so.
Yeah, it feels like real time almost.
Yeah, almost.
In a way.
Except, yeah.
Yeah.
Not like Dunkirk, but or not Dunkirk, 1917, but like it's very much.
Yeah, I was reading. I mean, so first of all, the writer of this was the same guy who wrote Spring Breakers, which is that movie with James Franco. Yeah, he directed it.
Oh, okay.
And which I've seen like the first hour of, and it's highly stylized, but again, there's not much there. It's like the same concept.
Yeah, it's super controversial, right? Like that's kind of like the mantra of this guy, right? Like,
well, wasn't he 19 when he wrote this?
Yeah,
he was like ridiculously young, which is
this,
to be fair, this movie seems like it's written by a fucking teenager because
so he made another movie called Gummo, which is apparently highly controversial too. Anyways, the director of this movie, what's his name?
Larry Clark.
Larry Clark. He said he wanted to make a movie that was like just real, like showing that teenagers didn't care about the consequences of actions, just like only being like in the right now, being a teenager, the raw shit, this is what it is type of deal.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's it's not like supposed to represent the entire population's teenage years, but I think it represents a subset of the population,
Mm-hmm.
And enough people could get behind it on that level, which I can respect. Like I can see it from that angle.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was real fucking weird. Like the really long shots, like scenes would take forever. And I don't know, it made me feel weird. Like I'm like, I don't know if that was on purpose or what, but
the dialogue was so strange. I felt like the dialogue was like, it was almost like if somebody had been told, hey, this is what teenagers in New York talk like, so act that way, and this is like the things they say.
Yeah,
like a lot of the dialogue was super awkward, and also I kind of had trouble like understanding some of the stuff that they were saying. But
that's the thing, though. I think I was reading that either the director, it was the writer. He suggested some of his friends and like the main guy, I don't remember his name, Telly.
Yeah.
He just found him on the fucking, like, just in New York. Like he was just skating and he just liked how he skated or some shit, and like was just like, hey, you want to be in a movie? Like he wasn't an actor or anything.
Wow.
Really?
That's how a lot of the kids are in this movie. Even his friend or whatever, So
And
that's probably why it feels like that. It
yeah,
feels
that's
like
the other
almost
thing
like a
is-
documentary. It's so fucking
yeah,
weird, man.
it's
Yeah.
like it previously you have movies like coming of age movies, or I don't know if you want to call this some kind of anti coming of age movie. You have adults playing kids, you know, like the
Yeah.
actors,
Yeah.
like these are actual kids playing kids. So I think that was like very shocking for the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how old was like Telly and Casper and Jenny and like the girl in the first scene when this movie was being shot? Like, were they actually that young? Were they over 18?
Telly was 17. That's the only one I remember.
I think
Okay.
Casper was the oldest, and he was like 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering because like there's some very lewd shots in this, and I'm just like, is this a child? Like, is this actually a child? Because this is
Yeah.
like really
Borderline
uncomfortable.
child pornography. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, right in the opening scene, Telly is seducing some poor
In
girl.
the movie, I
who-
think she's like 12 or some shit. Like in the
I
movie.
think maybe 13. I don't know,
That's
but
God.
I mean, she looks incredibly young, and you see a lot, and it is not a short scene. To touch on what Jay was saying, these are
Yeah.
very drawn out scenes,
Oh, the
and you're
kissing.
just so uncomfortable.
God, the first
Make
shot,
me
right?
want to freaking gag. I'm like,
I was like, oh man, are we
God.
doing this? Like that scene right away, I
just
was like, fuck,
macking, Big Mac.
forever.
Yeah,
That was when I messaged you guys today. I was on that scene and I was like, I hate this immediately.
yeah.
And it feels so much longer than it probably is too. Just
Because
how
there are
awkward
movies
it
that
is.
I like that make me feel uncomfortable. Like I'm thinking specifically about like Ari Aster with Midsommar and Hereditary, where it's like there's a lot of really uncomfortable scenes, but I'm still really drawn in, and it's like a
Yeah.
good level of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But this is just like I don't want to be here. I don't want this right now.
I feel like I'm committing a crime or something.
Yeah.
It's like
Not
looking, I
enjoy-
was like, fuck, man, does anyone know that I'm watching this?
Which,
It's weird.
granted, like for a movie to be able to, for any form of media to be able to like elicit that strong of an emotion, there's something to be said there.
Right.
There's
But
something to
it's
be said.
like, but is it good in the way that it was
Right.
presented? And I think the argument is no, like, because some people it's just like, oh, I fucking hated every single character, like I can't, like, how could anybody like these people in this movie? And then there's some people who are just like, well, you were supposed to hate them, but like it's totally different. Like I don't know, think of a character you hate, like Gone Girl, the girl,
Mhm.
like you hate her. But like
Right.
the way the story is written, the dialogue and everything, you love to hate her. Like Telly
Yeah.
in this movie, like
Yeah.
you just hate him
You
because
hate to hate him. Yeah.
like it's I don't think he's like written well, you know? Like you hate him based on like the face value of what he's doing, not like I don't know. It's just not deep enough dialogue and like connection to the whole
Yeah.
story, I guess.
Yeah.
I know what you're getting at for sure. Like,
Yeah.
for example, like there are some classics like The Great Gatsby. There's not really any likable characters in that, but I think it's still a really, really great book. And like with this movie, especially like Telly, you know that you're supposed to hate this character, right?
Yeah.
Like you were saying. But also you kind of don't really like the way the actor's portraying the character either, because he's just kind of I don't know. I
I feel
know
like
what
in
you-
that sense he did a really well job.
I don't know. I don't know if he did
because
or if
it
it
was
was
so
easy to
shitty.
hate.
I
It
don't
was such a realistic shitty that I don't know, man.
you
I
think so?
thought
But
he
like
did a good
but like
job.
going back to what I
for
said
what it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I
going
don't
back
know.
to what I said, like, oh, this is how New York kids talk. Like, just do that. Like, it didn't feel. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was like a real look into like the New York teenage culture or whatever like that.
Yeah.
I know it's like a subset. It's like not every kid and teenager was fucking smoking weed, drinking 40s, chilling with the bros with the shirts off and
Yeah.
raping women. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
very exploded caricature like it's kind of very over the top for a reason, like, you know, on purpose.
Yeah.
Like this guy,
Yeah.
he's trying to be very controversial, but
Yeah, so I think for this movie, we definitely don't need to go scene by scene. We can kind of just jump into big scenes that, you know, and you guys bring them up too. But just the let's kind of talk about the opening scene and the ending scene. A lot of big similarities between those scenes, with Telly just being like, when we first meet Telly, he's just like, oh, like I really care about you, and you don't know the character. You're like, maybe this is in some sense of the word genuine.
He starts off with that weird monologue, and he ends with another weird ass monologue.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's so, yeah, and then you see as he goes through, and then the ending scene where he seduces this other poor girl. He does almost the exact same script as he did in the first scene, which is like, oh, like I want to make you feel so good, and like this and that, like this, I care about you so much, and you're just like, fuck this character so much. This is one of the problems that I have with this movie, and it's not. I know it wasn't supposed to have character development, but there is zero. There's no character has any, and that's part of it. There's no consequences for any of their actions, but none of the characters change at all, I think.
And that's like the harsh reality of life.
I guess so.
A 24-hour period, you expect somebody to like show astronomical growth. I don't know.
And that's true that it is based off of one day, but it's just like, what the fuck is the point? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's the
point.
Thing.
I feel like there is such a big point to the movie that I don't know if it's good or not, but like it's powerful in a way, like in a certain way, whatever. Like just how kids just don't give a fuck, and like I don't know,
right?
The girl, I guess the main girl, I don't know, whatever
Jenny.
her name is, yeah. Which is seeing her go through all that stuff, and like in the end, everything just stays the same. Is just so fucking like.
And then she gets HIV, and then she gets fucking raped.
Frustrating, dude. That was going to be one of the redeeming qualities for this movie. If there was any glimmer of hope or of anything, was that we find out that the character Jenny is HIV positive, and the only person that she slept with is Telly. And Telly is now seducing this other girl who's now 13, I think. And Jenny is on a mission to go let Telly know that he's HIV positive. And it's just like, okay, maybe Jenny's going to get there just in time, and maybe she's going to save this girl from sleeping with Telly, who's HIV positive. Not only does she not do that, she gets there late, walks in on them having sex. He's raping her, and Jenny crashes out on the couch because she had taken drugs earlier, and then she gets raped. And it's just like so frustrating to watch that nothing that you like kind of want to happen happens. And
but that's like the sad realities of life.
Yeah.
And I get that, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just like, okay, yeah, cool. Like nothing fucking great happens ever in this movie, and
except for Casper gets AIDS too. I mean,
right?
Silver lining, I guess. I mean, if you want to try to find something in there, but
the thing is, this movie, it could have been really interesting if they had played more around that dynamic, like that's kind of plot line where she finds out she's HIV positive, and then it becomes this whole thing. But then it just like wasn't. It was just like, all right, and over here people are skating and beating the fuck out of this guy, like basically killing him. Like, you know, it was just so unconnected and weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it was supposed to be, but like, if all we're gonna say is every time we bring up like something and then say, well, maybe it was supposed to be that way, it just feels like you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, it's
if that's what you have to say.
Yeah, that's
If you can understand it, then it's bad. Like, no, I don't know. I think every single scene is just bullshit. Like the only scene I think that has some kind of depth to it, and we talked about this a little bit, is when they're at the clinic, when they're getting tested for HIV, and you're like, okay, like we're starting to see like some characters kind of go through some hardships and like maybe try to like overcome these. And you know, because that's when we find out that Jenny, she was essentially just going to the clinic with her friend Ruby, who's had multiple sexual partners, just to kind of go there for moral support. And it turns out Ruby's clean, Jenny is not. She's HIV positive. And that was like the one scene where I was like, okay, there's something, maybe there's more of a story to develop and to tell. And then they just the next fucking scene they jump into like some trap house that they're just getting high off of nitrous or whatever the fuck, you know.
Yeah.
And just talking about nothing.
That's the
Yeah.
one like thread that I thought was actually pretty good, but it just would get interrupted and wouldn't come back for so long that I was just like whatever. Like it would just make me lose
Yeah.
interest by the time it would come back up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
I feel that.
Yeah, and there was even some more scenes with Jenny. I mean, Jenny's character had the most interesting story by far. But even the scenes later on that we kind of see her in again, it's just like this is just bad right. Like I just don't care about what's happening right now. When she's in the taxi talking to that old man,
Those weird ass dialogue when she's talking to the taxi cab, like I don't even know. Is there something deeper there? I have
it's supposed to
no
be so
clue.
deep, but I'm just like,
It's
he's
just
saying
like
nothing.
weird. It's
Yeah.
just weird. It's awkward. It's really long. The I have no legs homeless guy on the train.
That shit got
Weird
stuck in
and
my head, I ain't gonna lie.
Dude,
but
that's
like,
kind of
but
my
also like kind of cool, kind of interesting to see. Like, my favorite part of the whole movie is just like seeing all the fucking weirdness of New York City. You know,
Yeah.
like when they do
Yeah.
the pan shots and they showed all those old people like exercising in
Dude
the
dancing
park.
in the subway.
Oh,
and shit.
yeah.
Yeah, and like
Yeah,
all
the
the weird
dancing in the
shit. Like
subway.
I'm like, and I thought those shots were shot really well, but like,
I thought so too.
but I don't know. That was
Especially that
Yeah.
one at the end, in between the like big reveal or whatever you want to call it. There's like a period of time where there's just a lot of random shots of people doing things in New York City. It's the one where the guy's like sitting against the wall, kind of like
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
breathing.
music
or
during that
whatever.
was pretty
Dude,
cool.
that reminded me of Uncut Gems. Like that
Yeah.
whole vibe with the music and the way that the shots were going. I was like,
30
dang, this
strings
is
and
kind of
shit.
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, and to go back to Jenny's character development, or well, Jenny's journey, I guess we'd say.
hmm
Even the scene where she ends up in that nightclub, where it's just like, I don't even know what the fuck is really going on. Like it's just like this crazy club and everyone's doing drugs and like you see the guy with the glasses who reminds me of the person from Stranger Things, one of the
Yes.
characters.
Fun fact, I guess, if it's fun, is that's the writer. Is that guy?
For
For
This
the
movie.
whole movie? Oh, really?
Yeah.
oh, is it really the guy with the glasses?
The
Oh.
guy with the dope fucking nuclear assault shirt. Shout out.
Dude, I know. I saw that and I was like, let's go.
But it's just even that scene is just like he's just like, oh yeah, we're partying and everyone's on X and they're touching each other. Here, take this drug. Like
Shoves it in her mouth.
shoves it in her mouth.
A
and
minute of that dude
Okay.
making out with like 3 girls at once. I was like, why are we looking at this?
Yeah, again, just more overextended scenes. And I'm just like, when I'm watching this, I'm picturing them actually filming this. And I'm just like, what the
How
fuck is
awkward.
happening in that room?
The one where Tully's mom is like breastfeeding his little
Oh
brother,
god, yeah.
and then Casper's like staring at her titty, and he's like, "Your mom." What does he say? He's like,
Mom's
all
tits looking
fucking.
nice.
It's looking
He's
good.
all hard for this shit. Like, it's
Yeah.
weird. It like it makes you question the writer because you got to think that he's some kind of fucking sick pervert to like even
Maybe that's just
think
shit
of
he
that
saw,
shit.
you know?
But do you think
Probably the
that's
stuff he
really
saw.
shit he saw, or is that just like
Yeah. I don't
crazy,
know.
weird ass perverted? Like
These
like
kids
even-
are
I don't
horny
know.
for everything, bro.
Yeah.
What does he say? He's like, was watching this girl fucking eat a watermelon. He's like, dude, I got so fucking hard. and
Yeah, I
shit. was
got
like,
so hard I
"What?"
want to start jacking off under the table, and I was like,
yeah,
"This
see, they're-
fucking
that's
guy
just how fucking
probably
horny these teenagers
thought
are.
that, but he's probably the one that's actually thinking all that shit." I'm like,
Oh.
I don't fucking know. The writer, because why would you?
Yeah.
I don't even, it's like so fucking
Maybe.
weird.
Especially if he's
So
that young.
weird.
But I don't
Yeah,
know.
he
Maybe,
was
it's hard to
19.
say. Like maybe it is a mix of things that he saw, or I don't know. Because it's like you said, it's like hyper exaggerated.
Yeah, yeah.
But to go back just real quick to the freaking club scene, dude. How did she just walk in that place? Who did she know that just let her walk in there? There's that whole ass line, and they're just like getting like the hookup, like friends
Yeah, it's
with
like all these
bouncer,
kids
locking
just
the
know
door.
everyone, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, what the
Yeah.
hell? Did she just get to no
They're the
problem?
cool skater bros. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think other things there was some parts of this movie that I was just like it just felt like too much shock value, or like even the scene where you have the 4 little boys who are like, how old are these little kids? The shot where they're all smoking
Oh, I
weed
know. I was like, is
without
that real? The
That's
first guy,
like-
it didn't look real because no smoke came out. It looked like a light or something. And then all the other guys,
Dude,
all
there
the
was
smoke,
like a
and they're inhaling it
freaking-
like
They were like
they're
French
pros.
inhaling and like
Yeah.
I was like, these
Yeah.
are
Blowing smoke
children.
rings. This is not their first rodeo.
Yeah.
And it's just like they just got all of these people off the streets and like just these fucking people who were, I mean, I don't know that, but it's seemingly so, which
But it kind of shows you that like the cycle is going to keep continuing. Like
yeah.
Right.
the-
And they're
these
doing
these
it-
kids probably have no. I mean, where are their parents? You know, so
right.
it creates
There's
that
one
cycle
parent in the
of
entire movie.
yeah.
He
It
gets
creates
his weed
this
from his brother and
cycle.
shit. Like it just keeps going.
It's just gonna keep going. It's just like how many more people are gonna suffer just because of I don't know, parentlessness and poverty and
Right.
growing up in the projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really just shows, you know, when kids are around their peers, they will do stupid fucking things, which there's a lot of truth to that. Like a kid by himself is not going to, he's not going to yell out these like derogatory slurs to like gay people or like, you know, but when they're in this giant group, all of them are just yelling out just horrendous things to this gay couple that's walking down the street. And it just really shows that they wouldn't do that if they were alone. And also the younger people who are in their lives see that and they're like, we have to do this too. Kind of like you were saying, it's going to keep going. You know, these kids are just going to, and then those kids are going to have kids and they're going to raise them the same way. And it's just like this vicious cycle that you see forming.
Mhm.
It was interesting that his dad was mentioned but never shown.
Right.
And, you know, we only really saw like one parent the
What was
entire
that? I don't remember that.
One scene, yeah, that she was just like, oh, like,
Oh, yeah.
your dad, I couldn't give you any money until
Yeah,
you get a
yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And that's like the form of discipline that he has.
He's
Is
probably an absent parent, you know, working all the time,
Right.
trying to survive in New York City. Like that shit
Yeah.
fucks up families, you know.
Mhm.
Mm.
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, so I guess a pretty big scene that we should touch on is the scene where they jump that guy in the middle of the street. Where which character is it? It's Casper. He
Yeah.
bumps into this guy and starts a
They're, like,
fight
at the
with
skate
him.
park, right? Or are they at some
Yeah.
point?
But it's on the street, yeah, it's just like right on the, and just everyone just jumps in, and it's just that mob, you know, there's just like this gang almost where they just beat the
So
fuck out
many
of this
fucking
guy.
people, man.
There's like 15 of them, and they just mercilessly
They're
beat
like,
the
you think
fuck
we
out of
killed that guy? I was like, what the
Just
fuck?
like,
Nah,
baby,
he's just
no,
twitching.
he was twitching. Yeah, and like after they fucking beat the shit out of him, is it No, is it Casper or Telly who gets his skateboard and just fucking decks him straight in the face? Like, just more shock value stuff. Just more like, what the fuck are we doing here? What
Yeah.
What is the point of this scene at all? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was I mean, on one hand you saw like, because you saw the like kind of internal group hanging out in the house, you know, doing drugs and shit like that, and then this is just like the extended group, right, at the skate park and all that shit. But there's still this like crazy bond where like they'll just jump in and do whatever, you know,
Yeah,
like you
the
guys are
mob
saying,
mentality, yeah.
mob mentality thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane. And like, you know, only a lot later in the day does someone even bring up like, do you think we killed him? Like they don't address that at all when it happens, you know.
Right.
Yeah. It's almost like you'll be seen as weak if you even like think about that or some shit.
Yeah. And like, you know, like we were saying, it is almost like documentary style. I think that was a little bit on purpose maybe, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
it just feels, I don't know, it feels weird. Maybe it is too real. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
what's so uncomfortable about it.
And like when the movie came out, I was reading a little bit about it. Like, people were saying to parents, "This is a must-see movie for parents."
Oh my
to
gosh.
get to kind
Oh,
of
Jesus.
to kind of like a scare tactic. Like, yo, you keep an eye on your kids because they might be running around with a fucking angry skate mob over here, drugging and raping people and beating people with skateboards and all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
It's weird.
Yeah,
and
so
it's not that these types of things don't exist. So it's, you know,
yeah. I read Roger Ebert's review of this movie.
Uh-huh.
She gave it 3.5 out of 4, which was wild. But
wow.
it was in the day that it came out.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about how it feels like such a warning to kids, but it's so real that kids can't watch it because it's fucking rated NC-17 or not rated at all.
Right.
So it's like, what?
Who is this
That's what-
audience?
Yeah, that's what's so
Yeah,
confusing. It's
yeah.
like,
Is it a
What
message
is it-
to
what's the
to the
point of it?
parents or to children?
I think no, it's for the kids for sure. I think
Yeah.
because it's like you're gonna be reckless. Like, look what the fuck you're doing. You're spreading like this deadly disease
Right.
around and shit. You know?
Well, I mean, and kids who are as rebellious to live that type of lifestyle are going to find a way to watch an NC-17 movie just because it's NC-17. Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't even think it's that deep and like trying to send this message. I think, personally, I think that's giving it too much credit. I think it's just, I don't know. I think the writing is really fucking bad. And I think it's just shock value, gross to be gross, and uncomfortable just because, you know, I don't know. That's kind of where I am on that. But
Yeah.
all right, let's hop into more scenes that we thought were notable. I mean, again, for me, it's just like nothing is. It's not really that many super important scenes from like the beginning to the beginning scene is, you know, kind of important. You introduce Telly, and then the ending scene where you kind of see the movie wrap up. But everything in between is just them being rambunctious kids, like when, you know, they break into the pool, and
Yeah.
Right.
that whole scene's uncomfortable and annoying, and just
Oh yeah.
like
all
the
the
guy, the scene where the guy,
insistence, all the insistence. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
scene where the guy's flopping his dick and you just hear it, and he does it like 8
So many
times,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's just like, what the fuck is why? What? This is so dumb. This is,
Yeah.
I don't know. Ugh.
True.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what's so weird is like trying to think of scenes that even happened besides like the crazy.
a
Because
really
like
big
most
one.
of the meat and potatoes of the story like happens in like 4 scenes, you know, like
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
most of the
for
story,
sure.
and then like most of the middle is just kind of like, I don't know,
Showing that these kids are assholes and you hate them.
showing their lifestyle, showing
Yeah.
New York, showing stuff like that. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Uh,
feel like even though there's no like scenes that stick out like that, just like the feeling of the whole movie as a whole, like just every feeling that I felt, that's what sticks with me. Like what happens and like the visuals and dialogue, whatever, like that shit is obviously not very good, but like
Mm-hmm.
just the way it made me feel and the
Yeah.
way that thinking about it makes me feel is like, damn, it's kind of crazy, I think.
I agree with that for sure. Like, I wish I did have a couple more days to let it sit in, but I can already feel like the effects, you know, just of time passing and
Yeah.
thinking about this movie. Like, but I can see both sides, right? Like, I can see people who would be like super put off by it and, you know, disgusted or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think there is
Yeah,
like some
people
kind
seeing
of raw
it as-
grit here.
Yeah, people seeing it as a really raw movie that really represents some sort of circles out there that do exist. And
Right.
then other people who are just like, it's kind of inflated, it's just hyperbole, it's overstretched. But and that's the thing, like in me is like, where am I between it? I don't know. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of weird. Like
right.
it's a
Dude,
weird
I feel like
it's a weird movie to like really like pin, if we can say.
Yeah.
But Adrian, yeah, I think you disagree. You're like, it's not that deep, right? Yeah.
In some ways, I mean, in some ways, I think, not to say that young people can't do amazing and like produce and create amazing things, but there's just so much of this movie that just reeks of like, this is just a story that was written by a 19-year-old who, I don't know, it's just fucking, so much of this is just punk ass shit that's just like, what? Like, I I see the, I don't know. I see like to say like, oh, it's, you're supposed to hate everyone, but it's just like, all right, well then there's no consequences. Fuck everything. Like
Yeah.
every
I
movie
don't
can be
know. I
shit.
feel like almost or most of the scenes felt pointless in the moment, but once it led to the ends with just Jenny going through this whole thing,
Hmm.
like I feel like it all led up pretty well to that. Like thinking about it overall, not like in the moment because that shit
Ye-
sucks, but like
Yeah.
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 like I think it leads pretty well to the end being like these kids fucking like they don't give a fuck. I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought, but like
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So this movie is compared a lot to mid '90s, the Jonah Hill one. Have you guys seen that?
Haven't. No.
that's a kid
None
from
of you
Bad
guys
Boy,
have?
dude. That's
No.
crazy, right?
Oh fuck! All right. Well, I won't talk about it too much, but it's harder to convey the point here if you haven't seen it. But basically, mid '90s is a similar movie, even around skate culture, following a group of like young kids just through like a day's events or whatever.
In the
Maybe a couple
90s.
days. Yeah, in the mid '90s. And so it's the same. It's trying to do a lot of the same things. Show this like kids not caring, kids like skating, drinking, smoking weed, whatever.
Yeah.
Even like it's like they try to also bring in like the sex piece, but it's not a forefront thing. It's like very much implied and not shown.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And when I thought about that movie and this movie, like mid '90s feels like it's more of like the Fisher Price version
First
than
price of kids. Yeah.
of kids. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Like
Huh.
it's here's, this story, something like tragic will happen, but it won't really affect things so much. There's a little bit of effect. You get a little bit of the like resolution and shit, a little bit more appeasing to the crowd.
Yeah.
But it's not raw. It doesn't feel raw at all. It feels highly like, I don't know,
Scripted?
staged and
Yeah.
yeah, like
More
it's just
scripted and shit.
it's more scripted. Even and this movie's scripted too, like it's supposed to be, but
Mhm.
Not like a lot of it though. I saw that.
I don't know. From what I read, almost all the scenes were like scripted down to the
Oh,
line. But
okay.
I don't know. It doesn't feel like that mid '90s. It feels like it's more like whimsical. Like here's more of like a coming of age. These young
Yeah.
kids are skating. Everything is like just flowing, whatever.
Hmm.
And there's elements of like here's things that could be bad, but it's not nearly on the same plane. Like not even close.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've touched on just how hard it is to talk about the middle scenes because not a lot is happening. I guess let's do just one last kind of deeper dive onto the ending scene where Telly is seducing this poor girl, and they go into that house party that's pretty much cashed out. Everyone's passed out. Casper's singing "Casper the Friendly Ghost" in the bathtub next to some guy who might be dead.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I was
Um,
like this guy.
what are our thoughts on this? I want to take it to you, James. How do you feel kind of about just how this scene kind of came together?
Just awkward again. Like he's
Yeah.
just chilling there in the bathroom, and then like some people come and take a piss, and he's just like flushes the toilet for them. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't know. There actually are some like kind of humanish, funny-ish parts in the movie, right? Like
Mhm.
there's
I
a
didn't laugh a
worse-
single time in this movie.
I
Did
laughed
you
at
guys?
that. I laughed at that. That was maybe
Yeah.
I
one
don't
of the
know
only
if I
things I
did.
laughed at. But like I don't know. It's just strange, and yeah. But I don't know. I thought back on like my teenage years, my like first
Mhm.
outings with alcohol poisoning or whatever. I don't know. I've never had
You're
alcohol
right.
poisoning or anything, but like obviously like
We've never drank under 21, so
yeah. I mean, mom,
It's illegal, so yeah.
I
of
just
course.
barely
Yeah.
started drinking today, so no. Like I don't know. I thought of like holy shit, we never like were that crazy. Also, and also
Right.
Yeah.
we grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're not I don't know, we're not all stacked on each other living in the projects and like
Right.
I mean we've all
We
had
had a pretty, our group of friends, all of us had pretty decent heads on our shoulders, you know. We were
Yeah.
never
yeah.
into crazy hardcore drugs or anything like that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
But I
was just I
guess,
don't know, comparing like those kind of crazy things like just being with your friends when they're all fucked
yeah,
up, trying to help them out or not help them
right,
out. I mean, he
Yeah.
wasn't helping them out, but it's just interesting to think
yeah.
about your
So,
past.
um, I think another big thing that happens here is you see one of the characters like really trying to seduce this other girl who's drunk, and she's like pushing him off, and like, I don't know, just, I guess I'll take it to you, Taryn. Like, how do you feel about, I mean, this is again a movie released in 1995, but just watching these guys be the stereotypical, like, oh, come on, you know, and no isn't meaning no. Like,
Mhm.
it's just weird. Where are you with that?
Yeah,
And
I'm
why?
like, thank God we've come so far, honestly. Like, if that shit would not fucking fly, hopefully, like, people saw their
Right.
friends doing that shit, you know what I mean? But, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just so uncomfortable. Like, just watching the girls are like, no, dude, get the fuck out of here. But then, like, then eventually they kind of, like, start allowing it, and you're just like, God damn it, like,
Yeah,
do that, you know? Especially the
It's-
girl at the end, I'm just like,
yeah,
the Telly or whatever.
yeah. The one that Telly is, oh God.
I'm just like, please keep saying no until what's your name gets there.
Yeah, and that's what pisses me off so much is that the only
It's not
protagonist that we have, Jenny, is drugged,
high
you
out of
know,
her
forced to take a
mind.
drug at that nightclub and can't
Yeah,
do
see,
anything.
even that dude just fucking puts his fingers in her mouth and shit to
Yeah.
put the pill. I'm like, fuck, man.
Yeah, not a lot of heroes in this movie for sure. Yeah, and then I guess we'll jump to Jay, the very last kind of sex scene that mirrors the first one, where it's, you know, rape. I don't know. How were you watching this? You know, how
Yeah.
were you feeling?
I mean, again, it's like watching a car crash in slow motion. It's like it's
Mhm.
so fucking long,
Drawn
and
out,
you're
yeah.
just the whole time you're like, no, 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 no,
Oh,
and it
man.
just doesn't end. It just keeps going. You're just like, fuck, this is fucking. It makes you feel like, I don't know. You
You're
feel,
there. You're in that room.
but like
Yeah.
even worse, like you're covered in something too. You know, like it's just like you're just like, ugh, this feels weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And like you know, and maybe that's like it's part of the power, right? You know, good or bad, there's power here, and that is like
Right, yeah.
it's that is like you don't do that anymore, right? Like that's not in anything. Even back then, I don't think that was like it was a really, really controversial thing to like have in a movie. I think kind of like what Terrence said, it shows, or hopefully maybe, I don't know, it shows like progress of people from, you know, now to then. Like now that would of course be a no-go, like, you know, and it wouldn't be cool, and there'd be a whole bunch of shit there. Which is good, right? Like we want to move in that direction, but you're like, this was 20, what is it, 20 years, 25 years
25 years ago.
ago, which is not that fucking long ago. And like, given everything else that's happening right now, it's like we're constantly battling these old things that we think have been dealt with and they haven't, right? Or maybe some subset of people feel they've been dealt with
Yeah.
and they really haven't. But like, one side is so blind to the other that you just,
Right.
you don't know until you see it happening. You're just like, holy shit.
Yeah, and I
It was
want to
kind of
touch
like
on
that.
that. I want to touch on that a little bit, you know, where I think we've kind of said like a couple of times we've said like, oh, like today that wouldn't be allowed, that wouldn't happen, we wouldn't. And I think there's maybe a little bit of disconnect. We're four guys in our mid-20s who have never had to really experience anything that some women still today do go through, and it's kind of mirroring a little bit about just kind of the state of the world right now with racism. It's easy for people who don't experience it to see and to kind of say like, well, that doesn't happen anymore because we're not directly feeling that. And so I don't know. I think that with these like certain guys who are very pushy and very forward, and no doesn't mean no to them. There still are guys out there that are like that, and we
Sure.
don't really know any of them. We didn't really necessarily associate ourselves with that type of crowd, but it doesn't mean that it's not still happening today. So I think that's something that's important to say. Just because we're not seeing it doesn't mean that it's still that it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
progress, but I don't know how much. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard
Which
to
is
say.
that's interesting, right? Because like it 100% would not be in a movie in 2020.
Right.
Like it just wouldn't.
Right.
But is that better? Like that?
Yeah. Are we just
Are we
ignoring it
sweeping it
now?
under the rug? Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting.
Right. Yeah. Are there any, last thoughts that we want to get in, last scenes, things that we want to touch on? Taryn, you got something?
I really want to just read the last two little paragraphs of Roger Ebert's review.
Okay.
I thought they were like super interesting and like just a viewpoint that I didn't have for the movie. So he says, "Kids is the kind of movie that needs to be talked about afterward. It doesn't tell us what it means. Sure, it has a message in quotes involving safe sex, but safe sex is not going to civilize these kids, make them into curious, capable citizens. What you realize thinking about Telly is that life has given him nothing that interests him except for sex, drugs, and skateboards. His life is kind of hell, briefly interrupted by orgasms. Most kids are not like those in Kids, and never will be, I hope, but some are, and they represent a failure of home, school, church, and society. They could have been raised in a zoo, educated only to the base instincts. You watch this movie and you realize why everybody needs whatever mixture of art, education, religion, philosophy, politics, and poetry that works for them. Because without something to open our windows to the higher possibilities of life, we might all be Tellys and more amputated than the half man on his skateboard."
Damn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, no, that's big. And that's-
Yeah, I was like, holy fuck. That
Okay.
I think that's what
Shit.
spiraled me into thinking like there
Yeah.
is something here, even if I don't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
watch it ever again, and I would never tell anyone to watch this movie, but like there is
Half
something
man.
there.
Yeah.
And see, and that was like one of the things I was like, what are these other like the taxi cab scene and the half man? Like, I was like, is there something deeper here to say? I don't know. Maybe Roger
Yeah.
Ebert was on some shit.
He actually mentions something like, "Oh, there's almost never any adults in the scene. Like they're just like in their own world." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's so crazy.
lawlessness kind of in their own little thing.
Yeah, we mentioned
Yeah.
there's
Public
one scene with
drinking.
the parent.
Yeah, when he's pissing on the wall and Telly goes around the corner to give him privacy, but like there's other people out there, like no one, like they don't care about
Right.
that.
Well, and
Yeah.
Casper's in the bathroom and that other guy's pissing like directly
Yeah,
next to the
yeah.
guy who might be dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Crazy. I
are
feel
we
like
ready to go
after
ahead.
that paragraph, like I think I just should I just retire now or like later?
All right, well, here's what I
That
want
is
to
the best
say.
reason,
I
bro.
know.
We are the film fumblers. We are not these renowned critics that are that I'm not a movie snob. I'm really not. There's so many fucking classics that I haven't seen, and I didn't study this shit. I don't, I'm not gonna try to be like all ho hum about how deep that this movie is really going, and not that I want to just say I'm just taking at face value, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't write that review, and I don't know. It's
Yeah.
It's complicated. Are we ready to jump in reviews, guys?
Yeah.
Just
James,
silence,
did you have anything else to add here?
No, I think I'm all.
Oh man, my rating is it's on one side of the spectrum, but it's just where is it?
Take the floor.
And-
Take the floor.
Yeah, so I'll jump right into this. This movie, I think that the writing wasn't necessarily good. I think that the progression of the movie wasn't necessarily good. The opening scene, we are introduced to this character that we hate, pretty shortly after that opening scene. And then a lot of nothing happens, and you just see punk kids being assholes. And then the end scene where the protagonist is trying to be victorious, not only fails, but also gets raped in the process. And you just hate everyone. It's, the acting is whatever. It's middle of the line. These weren't necessarily actors, kind of like, and if they were like first starting out. The last bit of this movie, I felt like a girl that Telly was seducing and just biting the pillow and waiting for it to be over. Like, I just
my God.
wanted to not be watching this anymore, which there's something to be said about a movie that can elicit that kind of emotion. And as I was watching it, I was like, okay, this movie is like a 3 for me. And then when the ending scene happened, and like as the ending scene was happening, when the credits rolled, I was like, it's lower, and it's like a 2.5. I fucking hate this. I hate that I'm watching this right now. And honestly, I think that if I didn't know that we were recording this episode, I feel like I would have turned it off. I feel like I wouldn't have finished it. We have talked about it, and it has brought up a lot of conversation just about, things that society doesn't want to look to, and maybe we should put a light on there. And so I still don't like this movie, and I don't even recommend people to watch it. But I can't give it a rating as low as a 3 or 2.5. But I will give it a 4. That's where I'm gonna land on this, because it made us think. So a 4 is where I'm gonna.
Is that the lowest rating in history as of right now?
I don't know. And usually I give movies fucking phenomenally high ratings. This one I just couldn't. I couldn't.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm gonna stand. And maybe if I watched it 4 days ago, it would be different, but I didn't. So
Right.
Okay,
that's where I'm at.
I can go next.
Yeah.
So I had this. Oh my God.
Sorry.
The same feeling as you. Like I don't know where it was, halfway, maybe past that, where I was just like, I paused it to do something, and I was like, I don't even want to like restart this. Like I just like didn't want to finish it. Like really, like every part of me was like, just fucking stop, But I'm glad that I did, because it like wrapped it all into one cohesive feeling movie. You know what I mean? Like just the rest of it on its own, or like the first half on its own, like is one thing, but like the whole thing just like changes it or whatever. So I don't know. Like a small part of me, like appreciates what this movie is doing, but I can't understand who it's for, like why it was made, like all these different things. Like I get, someone in the chat was talking about like the AIDS epidemic or whatever is like an important piece of context and stuff.
Yeah,
like
paranoia.
That makes sense. Like paranoia. But I don't know. I guess just now it's a lot different because there's not really something that crazy, But I don't know, man. It made me think a lot more than I thought it would while I was watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Like thinking about it is like such a different ballpark than watching it. Like I do not recommend anyone watch this movie, because there's no, like, especially for adults, there's no fucking message, especially for adults. Like I would hope what safe sex is and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, but I'll wrap it up. I think I'm gonna give it a 5.0.
5.0, right middle of the pack.
Yeah.
5.0.
So 5 from Taryn. Who's ready, James or
I'll
Jay?
I'll take it.
Take the floor,
Take the
James.
floor. Yeah. So I think I'm right there with Taryn. Like I think this movie was trying to say something. It was just not done in the right way. Like it's not a movie you're exactly supposed to enjoy, and I don't think anybody can say that, oh yeah, I like that movie.
No, absolutely, yeah.
But I think people like thinking about the movie, like, and that's enjoyable in itself. It's just, I don't know, just the paths that it takes, and just like, I don't know, I just want more character progression. Like when we're thinking about coming of age movies, I think I want less coming and more age. Like not just fucking coming, I'm fucking, Like I don't know, I like the cheesy shit. I want to see like the happy-go-lucky struggles that I feel is more, I don't know, is it more relatable? Maybe it's not, I don't know.
Well, to just
but maybe
say
this
really quick
thing
what
about
you were
kids,
saying,
yeah.
what you said to me is like, how much progression are we going to get in 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's tough.
And I don't know, maybe I just want to live in the perfect world or whatever, but I don't know, it's just something so strange about this movie. I fucking love looking at New York City, man. New York's like, I love all the shots, like I love all the craziness of it. Like I'm just like, this shit is so cool to watch. Like I could just watch an hour of New York City homelessness and fucking crazy people at the park on the subway. Like that's the coolest thing ever. And I think like based on that alone, like I'm right there with Taryn. This is a 5. Like
Okay.
this is a 5. Like that's like exactly how I'm feeling. It's not any more, it's not any less. It's like in the middle. Like it's just there. It's just a story that like didn't need to be told, but it's a story that fucking happens to millions of Americans all the fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's whether you want to listen to it and watch it or not is like up to you.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have to say.
It's tough. It's one of the things that you don't want to look. It's like I think you said earlier, it's like a train wreck in slow motion. You don't
Yeah,
want to
Jay
look.
said that.
Or Jay said that, yeah. So, Jay, let's jump right into your review. Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't like it for all the same reasons, right? Like, a lot of it is super uncomfortable. A lot of it is, you know, drawn out things. You know, a lot of it just feels really weird to watch. But yeah, I mean, I can't help but like, I think if you watch, and I encourage you guys to watch mid-90s, it's in the same vein. You'll get the same kind of thing, but maybe you'll relate to it a little bit more because it's not as crazy and like, I don't know. I think it's
made to be more entertaining, right?
Yeah, kind of. But I think it's like, you know, probably Taryn might relate to it the most, I think, from all of you guys. But like it's more the like it's more the thing that I think we kind of grew up with than this movie was. But I can 100% see where they got the vibe. You know what I mean? Like this kind of raw, gritty, you know, showing of this like subset of people that go through this when they're growing up. It was really interesting. Yeah, I mean, there is pieces like James said, you know, seeing New York and stuff. New York's one of my favorite cities that I've been to, at least so far, right? And I love seeing it. I've been to some of the places that were shown, like shot at. I've seen like, you know, these things in the subway. I've had like crazy weird conversations with people in the subway who think that like they can talk to you about turning into like a lizard god or some shit like that. Like just weird shit like that.
Yes.
Like these things happen and it's cool,
New York is a
right?
weird fucking city.
And seeing that, like, I don't know, it just gives me a little bit of warmth. Like I like to see things like that. Not you know, not necessarily
warmth and
it can be a better movie, right? Like there can be better subject matter. But seeing New York City is good. It's cool for me. But yeah, like, you know, much more preferred and like Uncut Gems or one of these hundreds of other movies that are shot there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you know, it's just unique. It's a unique like alternative coming of age, and I like some of the shots. I like the music. The soundtrack was really good. There was a lot of like old school hip hop stuff in there that I hadn't heard in a long time. The connection with the Mac Miller thing, like the more I kept watching the movie, the more that I would hear things used in that fucking mixtape. And I realized that I knew all those things so much because I'd listened to that thing so much, but I never thought about that. Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say, hey, you should check out this movie, kids, right? Like it's not really something I feel like I can do, but I don't want to like strip it of those things that I like about it. So I'm gonna say it's like and maybe this is maybe this is stretching a little bit, but it's like a 5.7 for me. Okay. It's like almost a 6, but not quite there.
That's fair. That's
all
fair.
right. Yeah. So yeah, so I rated it a 4. Taryn and James rated this movie a 5, and Jay coming in with the 5.7. Collectively, we are at a 4.925. So just shy of a 5, which I'm kind comfortable with.
5
I mean,
is average,
Yeah.
guys.
It's-
That's half.
yeah.
I
Right.
don't know.
Well, and to be fair, we've rated movies, and I think maybe because we're the Film Fumblers and we are drinking while we do this, we've rated movies very fucking high. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gave movies 9.75s already.
I feel like we're pretty sober for this episode because
Ridiculous.
of the context of all of the seriousness of the movie a little bit.
Yeah.
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 There's a piece of that.
So it's still average. And again, it brought up a lot of conversation that not a lot of movies are going to bring up. And maybe it's something so ugly that we don't want to look at, but that maybe we should.
Yeah.
And we all did. And, after watching this movie, I don't regret watching it, but
Mhm.
I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know what your guys' favorite coming of age movies are. Or like any of these things. Show us some, or maybe we should watch another raw and gritty, real
Oh,
life
God.
movie.
Can we do it in
you
like
know?
6 months? Because I don't know if I can take that.
Well, like, I don't know, maybe like the hyper realism. I don't know.
And maybe that's another thing is we're in such a strange time right now with just everything that has been going on. I mean, we're filming this June 13th, 2020. Everyone knows how crazy the world is right now. And it's just mentally draining to watch the news. And this movie was also mentally draining. So maybe this wasn't the best time for this movie to be played. But nonetheless, we would love to know what you guys thought of this movie. If you've watched it or just the conversation we had, how do you feel about this movie? Where do you stand with it? How do you rate it? How do you feel about the topics and the conversations that this can actually bring up? Please follow us on YouTube or subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much everywhere where you're at Film Fumblers. You could email us at filmfumblers@gmail.com. Request a movie, and it just may be an episode. I think that pretty much does it. If you are watching us live, we will be finding out what movie we're going to do next. So stay tuned for that. But nevertheless, thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and have a great rest of your day. Cheers.
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 Cheers.